Welcome back to Paranormal Asia. Tonight's story is true as it's widely shared across Japan. Do not accept midnight phone calls from unknown numbers. We begin in Tokyo's late summer heat, cicadas loud, apartments thin-walled, and a phone that rings exactly at 00, polite, patient, and impossibly cold. Before we step in, I want to know you're here with us. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and what time it is there right now, because time matters tonight. In Japan, midnight is not just late. It's when certain doors refuse to stay closed, especially for phones. Our main voice is Rei Okamoto, 28 night shift claims clerk, collector of old commuter passes, and someone who triple checks door locks even in daylight. She keeps tea leaves in tiny jars, labels facing outward. Her younger brother Naoki, 22, studies audio engineering, loves abandoned soundscapes, and records hallway hums for fun. There's a Watanabe, 36, down the hall neighbor, who waters everyone's plants when they travel and tapes polite notes on squeaky hinges. Finally, there's Mr. Konda, the building manager with a key ring like wind chimes and a superstition inherited from his grandmother. Never answer midnight calls if the caller won't say your name. The superstition is simple. If an unknown number calls at midnight and the voice asks softly, "Are you awake?" you must hang up before answering. In Japanese folklore, unnamed voices borrow breath. If you answer, you give a little of yours. Give enough nights, something else breathes instead. For non-Asian viewers, think of it like this. Certain customs treat names like locks. A stranger without your name shouldn't have a key to your attention, let alone your house. Midnight is when the world's noise thins, and a voice can feel larger than its source. Tonight, Rei forgets the lock. Rei's routine is ordinary. Leave work at 11:18 p.m., konbini rice balls in her bag, shoes placed heel to heel by the mat, kettle filled to the index finger. She texts Naoki a sleepy shrimp emoji, then a single rule to herself. Shower, chamomile, lights out, but rituals fail when time learns you. At 00 exactly, the phone vibrates once, then rings like it's swallowing sound rather than making it. Unknown number. The old superstition flickers in Rei's mind, like a sign inside fog. She hesitates. The kettle ticks as it cools. Between the second and third ring, her thumb betrays her. She answers without speaking. A soft airiness enters the line. No breath, no room tone, only the kind of quiet that eats microphones. Then a male voice, careful, courteous. "Are you awake?" It is neither automated nor obviously human. Rei nearly hangs up, but politeness is muscle memory. She whispers, "Yes." The line remains open. Rei hears her own apartment exhale. Refrigerator relay, a far siren, cicadas through the window mesh. The voice doesn't follow with a sales pitch, a threat, or even a click. Just a second question. Do you remember the 4th floor? Rei's building has only 3. She ends the call, heartbeat in her gums, then does the practical things. Checks the peephole, tests the chain, opens the messaging app to text Naoki. No bars. The service icon shows a blank triangle, as if it too is considering. Outside, the hallway's sensor light turns on without footsteps. Aya's door hums with the softest movement. A watering can glints in the dark, though no watering happens at midnight. Aya whispers to the hallway, in a voice meant for plants, not people. Rei almost calls her name, then remembers the rule. Names are locks. At 003, the phone rings again. The second call is identical. Unknown number, no caller location, perfectly punctual. Rei declines. Her phone buzzes with a new voicemail anyway. She never set voicemail. The transcript shows a single sentence. "You are not alone on 3. Rei looks up at the ceiling, then at the floor, then at her door. Mr. Konda's key ring chimes from the stairwell. He makes rounds at midnight on humid nights when metal swells. Rei slides the door, chain still on, and calls softly through it. "Konda-san?" The keys stop. He answers, evenly, "I'm here." Then quieter, "Don't take unknown calls at midnight, Okamoto-san, please." Rei nods behind the door, breath steadying. She places the phone face down, screen dimming like a closing eye. She tells herself this is nothing, a wrong number with timing. She returns to her cup, but the tea smells like rain in a corridor she doesn't recognize. A 4th floor waits. The morning after the first call, Rei behaves as if routine can erase unease. She folds her futon with precise corners, eats half a rice ball on the train, and avoids eye contact with fellow commuters. Her office is nothing unusual. Fluorescent lights, paper files, a supervisor who coughs too often, but she notices time differently. Every digital clock she glances at pauses for a fraction too long before shifting numbers. Her watch lags a beat, like it must think before obeying. She tells herself it's sleep deprivation, too much caffeine, nothing more. Yet when she opens her desk drawer, a sticky note she doesn't remember writing stares back. You answered. The handwriting is her own, the ink fresh enough to smear. Ray crumples it quickly, cheeks heating, and buries it beneath a stack of claims forms. Later, Naoki calls at 1:11:47 a.m., not midnight, and asks about her kettle whistle. He says he could hear it on a recording he made while reviewing ambient audio from his dorm. Ray nearly tells him everything, but the sound of her own voice suddenly feels fragile. She settles for, the kettle's fine. By noon, she has convinced herself the call was a prank. That night, though, she charges her phone at arm's length, screen turned down, afraid of what patience waits inside it. Naoki, unlike Ray, treats the strange as opportunity. His audio engineering courses encourage students to hunt sounds others ignore. Buzzing escalators, hissing vents, the low groan of bridges. He delights in capturing what most people tune out. When Ray visits his dorm the following weekend, she finds his desk scattered with cassettes labeled Corridor Hum, Vending Machine 01, and Airshaft Tokyo Station. Among them sits one marked only with the number 3. He explains casually that he left a recorder running overnight in his hall, expecting snores or doors closing. Instead, at 00, a voice whispered, "Are you awake?" The tone is calm, identical to Ray's caller. Naoki laughs it off as a prank by classmates, maybe a late-night drunk, but the way he lowers the volume slightly as he plays it back betrays unease. Ray tries to ask whether the voice spoke her name, but the recording ends before anything else is heard, just silence thick enough to make her teeth hurt. She wants to dismiss it, yet her stomach knots. Her phone stays dark in her bag, though she checks it twice, then 3 times. At midnight, walking back from Naoki's dorm, she notices every convenience store clock reads 23:59 for longer than it should. Midnight seems unwilling to pass unless someone acknowledges it. Aya Watanabe, their neighbor, appears the following week, with watering can in hand, offering her usual smile. She comments on the heavy humidity, the way plants wilt in hallways with no airflow, but as she adjusts her sandals at Ray's doorway, Ray notices her fingernails short, clean, and stained faintly with ink. Aya asks if Ray ever hears phones ringing in empty apartments. The question is casual, like discussing rent. Ray's breath hitches, but she forces a polite laugh. Aya explains that in this building, some numbers do not belong to tenants but to spaces, stairwells, corridors, storage units. She says this as though it is obvious. When Ray asks what happens if someone answers, Aya merely shrugs. Depends how long you stay polite. Her watering can drips a line across the threshold before she leaves. That night, Ray sits on her futon, hands trembling over her phone as if expecting it to ring. She thinks about Naoki's tape, Aya's words, and the superstition Mr. Kanda repeated. It begins to feel less like folklore and more like an instruction manual. At 00, her phone lights up, unknown number. She refuses to touch it. The call stops after 3 rings, but when she checks the call log, it shows 4. The building itself begins to behave strangely. Ree notices the elevator stopping at floors no one requested. The indicator light lingers on 4, though the building ends at 3. In the laundry room, washers churn longer than cycles should, timers stuck repeating the same final minute. Even Mr. Kanda looks unsettled as he polishes the handrails in silence. One evening, Ree finds him kneeling by the mailbox panel, murmuring softly, keys jangling like nervous bells. When she approaches, he shuts the panel quickly, forcing a thin smile. "Maintenance," he says, though sweat beads his temple. Later, as Ree slides mail from her box, an envelope falls out addressed not to her, but to resident 4th floor. The handwriting is faint, rushed, as if written mid-breath. The envelope contains only a photo, her own hallway empty, taken from ceiling height. Ree drops it, stomach lurching. She tells herself someone is playing a joke. Yet she can't shake the sensation that the building itself wants attention, ringing through phones and clocks like a patient caller. That night, when the phone rings again, she lets it echo unanswered, though each tone thuds like a fist against the wall. By the 3rd week, Rhea is sleep-deprived, tea jars scattered, blinds half-drawn. Midnight calls continue, always 3 rings logged as 4. She places her phone in the freezer once, desperate to silence it, only to find frost melting across the screen when she retrieves it. Aya begins leaving small notes on neighbors' doors folded carefully. Stay polite. Naoki insists on visiting, curious to record phenomena directly. He sets up his portable microphones in Ria's apartment, red lights blinking like watchful eyes. Together they sit in dimness, waiting. At 00 the call arrives. Ria grips her knees, refusing. Naoki urges her, half joking, to answer for the sake of the recording. Ria shakes her head. Yet the phone answers itself. The line opens, speaker engaged, filling the room with silence so heavy that their breaths seem intrusions. Then the voice, "You remembered the fourth floor." Naoki pales. Ria's nails dig into her palms. The call ends. On playback, their recorder shows no audio spike, no waveform, nothing at all. Only the timestamp moves forward, marking minutes they can't prove existed. Ray begins mapping the calls like a claims clerk maps accidents. Date, exact minute, air temperature by the window. Which appliance hummed, which didn't. Patterns surface that make no sense, and therefore feel truer than coincidence. The first ring always lands as the kettle cools from 78 tues to 76 tues. The hallway sensor light triggers exactly 2 seconds before the second ring. The third ring coincides with the elevator's cable whispering as if weight has joined it. On nights when she places salt by the door, an old habit from childhood, the phone displays unknown number in thinner font, like the device is starving. She tells herself she's only preventing panic by quantifying it, but classification becomes invitation. Naoki notices it too. The more they discuss the phenomenon, the more precise it behaves. His audio meters flatline at 000, like a heart monitor held underwater, then resume with a faint subsonic throb that registers as pressure behind the eyes instead of sound. He jokes about infraspectral callers, but the laugh stays trapped in his throat. Aya knocks at 2340, carrying a tiny dish of rice and a pinch of tea leaves, places both on Ray's shoe cabinet, and says the least comforting words in the gentlest voice. When a building finds your attention, it will not forget the path back. The elevator is the first to betray them. Ray rides it up from the lobby with Naoki. After a late dinner, each floor passing with its usual metallic sigh, the panel lights hopping from 1 to 2 to 3. The carriage stops, doors open to reveal 3, the same hallway, the same scuffed baseboards, the same green safety placard. They step out, puzzled, and the elevator doors close before either turns. The carriage descends without being called. Ray's key opens her door, but the air inside is wrong fresh, as if no one has lived a day here. The refrigerator light is out. The futon is folded at a geometry Ray never manages. The tea jars are unlabeled. On the table sits a single phone, older than hers, face down, screen black. Naoki whispers that they must have walked into the vacant unit across from Ray's, but the layout is mirrored there. This room isn't mirrored. Ray flips the phone over with a fingertip. It's hers, identical down to the worn case, except the wallpaper shows a hallway camera angle she has never chosen. The clock reads 00. It begins to ring. She leaves it on the table and walks backward out the door, pulling Naoki with her. The corridor smells faintly of rain. When they reach the real third floor, their elevator ride up has not yet finished arriving. Mr. Konda finds them pacing the stairwell, faces blanching the same color as the painted concrete. His keys rattle like nervous birds, and he leads them into the small utility office tucked behind the mailboxes. There, between binders of fire codes and a chipped kettle, he finally speaks plainly. Years ago, he says, a demolition company surveyed the block and found that several buildings shared anomalies. Phantom meter readings, empty lots that recognized electrical usage, old switchboards that lit up for lines never assigned. The term they used, half smiling, half serious, was address hunger. Places can want to be reachable. The old operator switches had names scribbled beside numbers, not tenants but locations. Stair A, roof east, corridor B. When the building changed to modern systems, some habits stayed. If you answer a call from a place that doesn't house a person, you give it a rote. He taps a printout on the wall. An evacuation diagram showing a faint gray rectangle above the third floor, probably a copier error, except the lines are clean, deliberate, labeled in microscopic type. Service corridor. Ray stares until the letters blur. Kanda tells her the only workable rule is impolite by design. Never answer a caller that cannot say your name first. If you have already answered, starve it. Don't speak at midnight for 3 nights. Don't think of it as a person. Don't give directions. They try starving it. Night 1, Ray and Naoki sit at opposite ends of the room. Phones powered down, mouths closed, a handwritten sign on the table, do not speak, like a rule for a silent retreat. The apartment resists, pipes tick in long conversational rhythms. The fridge compressor roars and dies. At 00, something else speaks. The intercom crackles with the gentle courtesy of a hotel concierge. A man's voice, familiar and blank, asks, "Are you awake?" They do not answer. The hallway light turns itself on, off like a blinking cursor. Night 2. They tape paper over the intercom, unplug the modem, and slide towels beneath the door to thicken the boundary. Midnight arrives as a weight, a weather system. The apartment's air grows cooler by 1 degree, then 2, then 3, until their breath fogs faintly. The phone they found in the wrong apartment appears again, this time on Ray's shoe cabinet. It rings without power. They don't touch it. The ring is patient and unhurt by refusal. Night 3 begins with rain. Tokyo sounds distant, as if buffered by wool. Ray lines the tea jars with salt, each lid a small white halo. At 00 there is no call, no intercom, no elevator whisper. The silence feels like exhalation after a held breath, and she almost smiles. Then the door knocks exactly 4 times, slow and evenly spaced, like a floor that finally found its voice. Athea arrives moments later, with her watering can on a rain-soaked night, when nothing needs water, and sets it beside the door as if it were a lantern. She listens, ear near the wood, then tilts her head toward the ceiling. It learned to be patient, she says. That's worse than hungry. She tells Ray that buildings with address hunger sometimes graduate. If you deny them voice, they ask for presence. If you deny that, they borrow sight. Athea pulls a small paper packet from her pocket and shakes out black sesame seeds, sprinkling a few across the threshold. Count, she instructs, slowly. Ray counts to 3 before realizing what she hears isn't her own voice but a perfect imitation coming from the corridor, counting with her, a beat behind. Naoki's hands shake so hard he drops his recorder. The device lands on the seeds, and for one heartbeat, the red light freezes. Mr. Kanda hurries up the stairs at the sound, arriving out of breath. He has brought a laminated list of vacant units, and a ring with a single dull key he never uses. We can't wait, he says gently. Some calls you only miss once. He proposes a test that feels like a dare. Ride the elevator when it insists there is a 4th floor, but refuse to step in. Watch. Note what disembarks. Ray wants to refuse, wants to choose a smaller fear. But the phone on her cabinet rings once. 1, not 3, and she understands the pattern has changed. Hunger has become invitation. The elevator waits at midnight like a throat clearing. Ray, Naoki, Aya, and Mr. Kanda stand in the lobby, fluorescent light buzzing thin above them. The panel button for 4 is taped over with yellowing plastic, a joke no tenant laughs at. Tonight the button glows faint red on its own. Kanda presses 3, but the carriage begins to rise past it, smooth and inevitable. The 4 of them stand pressed shoulder to shoulder, listening to the motor hum lower than usual, almost like a chant. The doors part to reveal a hallway that should not exist, narrower, darker, with wallpaper too fresh compared to the building's age. A faint smell of wet earth and cooling tea hangs in the air. Inside, the corridor stretches impossibly long. No exit signs, no unit numbers. Yet halfway down, they glimpse doors that look exactly like their own. Naoki grips the recorder with white knuckles. The red light blinks, falters, then steadies. Kanda warns them softly, "Do not answer if anyone asks if you're awake." They step out cautiously, salt trailing from Aya's packet marking a dotted line behind them. The elevator doors remain open but no longer show an interior, only blackness like stepping back into a turned-off television. Ryan notices the corridor carpet is damp, yet her shoes leave no prints. Each door bears names stenciled in neat black lettering. Corridor B, Stairwell East, Roof Access. Not names of tenants but of places. She realizes each door corresponds to something real in their world, each claiming a body it doesn't own. One door at the end bears only her surname, Okamoto, painted with an unsettling precision. She swears she never told anyone about the calls beyond this circle. The phone in her pocket vibrates even though she powered it down. 3 rings. She ignores it. It rings a 4th time. Aya whispers, "If you answer here, you won't return upstairs. You'll belong to your door." Naoki insists they should record evidence, but the air itself records them. Their breath steams against a wall that absorbs sound like cloth. The corridor hums, patient and polite. The door marked Okamoto begins to breathe. The metal knob pulses faintly, exhaling the smell of chamomile tea, raised tea, though she left the kettle untouched tonight. Kanda hands her the dull, unused key, muttering that it can lock appetite. His grandmother once claimed these buildings can be tricked, starved by turning their own locks against them. Ree approaches, salt slipping from her palm like sand through an hourglass. The knob stills when the key touches it, as if listening. Behind the door comes a sound she recognizes with horror, her own voice, whispering to someone, "Yes, I'm awake." The voice repeats again and again, caught in a loop. Naoki shouts that they should leave, but the elevator doors slam shut, sealing their retreat. The corridor lengthens, stretching until the doors vanish into mist. Only the Okamoto door remains clear. Ree feels every instinct scream to open it, to silence her own echo, but Aya places her hand on Ree's shoulder. "Starve it," Aya pleads. "You already answered once. Don't feed it twice." The phone rings again, but now the sound doesn't come from her pocket. It comes from everywhere. reverberating in walls and floorboards, polite yet unyielding. Rei resists, clamping her hands over her ears. Kanda scatters more salt, lines trembling under unseen draft. Naoki, desperate, sets his recorder to maximum gain, hoping to capture something to prove this isn't madness. The red light surges, then dies, battery drained in an instant. In that silence, the corridor voice asks one last time, "Are you awake?" It comes from the ceiling, from under the carpet, from the hollow of their throats. Rei's pulse hammers so loud she fears her body will answer for her. Aya repeats her earlier instruction, "Stay impolite, don't give direction, don't let it borrow her breath." With trembling fingers, Rei forces the dull key into the lock. The door resists, convulses, then yields with a metallic snap. The breath behind it ceases. The corridor dims, its length collapsing like a retracting telescope. Suddenly, they are standing once more at the real third-floor landing. Elevator doors open behind them, silent. The clock on Rei's phone reads 003. Back in her apartment, Rei burns the salt and tea leaves in a dish while Kanda mutters an old prayer, not Shinto, not Buddhist, something older and less codified. Aya insists on staying the night, watering can placed like a ward by the door. Naoki uploads his corrupted audio anyway, though it holds nothing but a flat hum and timestamps, skipping from 2359 to 004 with no middle. Online, strangers comment in dozens of languages. "I got a call like that. Always 3 rings logged as 4. Never answer unless they use your name." Rei reads them until dawn, feeling less isolated, yet more endangered. The building feels watchful but quiet, as though tricked into fasting. For now, when she finally lies down, her body too heavy to resist, she dreams of a hallway with endless doors, each labeled with surnames she does not recognize. She wakes at 07, daylight strong, phone silent. Relief breathes through her ribs, but her voicemail icon blinks. One new message, time-stamped 00. She listens. It is her own voice, steady, resigned. "Yes, I'm awake." Stories of midnight calls in Japan aren't just ghost tales, they sit inside a much older framework. In Japanese folklore, names have weight. To say a person's name grants access, a form of acknowledgement. Spirits without names search for doors to borrow. That's why many traditions warn against answering anonymous questions after midnight. The hour itself is called Oshimitsu Doki, the ox hour, between 2 and 2:30 a.m. believed most dangerous. But even midnight holds a symbolic power, a hinge between days, when boundaries blur. A question like, "Are you awake?" seems harmless, but it requires an answer that confirms presence. Folklore suggests that once you answer, you've agreed to a kind of contract. The superstition Rei encountered isn't random, it echoes centuries of belief that the unseen world gains leverage through polite acknowledgement. Phones add a modern twist. Technology in Japan often inherits spiritual anxieties. Consider the Denwa telephone urban legends that grew during the 1970s, when rotary phones were common in quiet apartments. People reported hearing voices that didn't match the numbers dialed, voices that spoke in polite tones yet refused to give names. These echoes blended old fears with new machines, a corridor spirit given wires, an empty room granted a number. The term address hunger, though fictional in our story, mirrors a real unease. Technology creates places that don't exist yet behave as if they do. Ghost stories often adapt to the most current form of communication. Letters once, telegraphs later, phones in the 20th century, and today even messaging apps that last seen timestamps suggest presence after death. The midnight phone call legend is just one version of this continuum. The idea of starving a presence, refusing to answer, refusing to speak is also consistent with Japanese ritual. Many protective practices emphasize non-engagement. Don't look back when leaving a graveyard. Don't reply when your name is called in the dark. Don't greet voices you can't see. These customs recognize that acknowledgement itself is food. Politeness is a form of energy, and to deny it is to deny entry. In Buddhist-influenced households, salt at the threshold keeps impurity from following you home. Rice, tea, or sesame seeds scattered at the door serve as distractions, forcing spirits to count endlessly instead of entering. Aya's sprinkling of seeds wasn't random, it was a folk practice shared across Asia, where restless spirits are bound by obsessive counting. Even in modern Tokyo, these practices linger, half dismissed, half believed, whispered across balconies and late-night trains. Rei's 4th floor has its own cultural echo. In Japan, the number 4 sha shares pronunciation with the word for death. Many hospitals and apartment blocks skip the number, much like Western elevators omit 13. To find yourself on a 4th floor that doesn't exist is to step directly into death's corridor. Folklore loves linguistic accidents, folding them into haunting. By placing Rei in a hallway labeled with her name on the fourth floor, the story draws on this deep-rooted fear. Death is not only near, but personalized. It isn't abstract, it's mapped to your identity, written plainly in block letters on a door that shouldn't be there. Japanese viewers recognize this symbolism instantly. Non-Asian viewers might not, which is why stories like this carry an eerie educational edge. They explain culture while frightening at the same time. What survives in these tales is less about proof and more about rhythm. 3 rings logged as 4, an unanswered question repeated nightly, a voice polite enough to be trusted. These patterns comfort and terrify because they feel real, they echo ordinary life. Folklorists often describe such legends as living myths because people adapt them to the devices they carry in their pockets. The lesson is practical. Don't answer a midnight call unless you recognize the voice. The deeper meaning is cultural. Politeness can be dangerous when extended without caution. Global audiences may hear this as a horror story, but Japanese listeners nod knowingly. They've heard similar rules since childhood, stitched into bedtime warnings and grandmother's advice, and so the story lingers, not as proof of ghosts, but as proof of how tradition survives by disguising itself in modern clothing. Midnight will always come, phones will always ring, the choice to answer remains yours. Midnight doesn't end with this story. Phones will keep ringing, doors will keep waiting, and voices will keep asking polite little questions that don't deserve answers. If yours rings tonight, let it echo into the dark, because some calls don't stop when you hang up, they only move to another number. Thank you for staying with us here on Paranormal Asia. As you close this video, listen carefully to the silence around you. If it feels too still, if the air hums, if your screen flickers just once, remember the story doesn't finish here, it only travels. Goodbye for now, and when the next midnight arrives, another tale will already be waiting for you.